All right. So I read that you talked about the idea for this film coming from a really low point in your life. And do you
Yeah,
feel like something about sadness and like kind of being at this dark low point kind of unlocks something creatively that like a lot of people don't expect?
absolutely. I think of that Joseph Campbell quote where he says, "The dark night of the soul is followed by revelation." And I definitely think there's so much to draw from pain. And that definitely is what happened to me in the making of this film. I was inspired by a really low point in my life. I had just lost this whole part of my nose to skin cancer. I had all these reconstructive surgeries, and my career wasn't where I wanted it to be as a filmmaker, and it all sort of came crashing down on me on this particular day. And I like had a meltdown and meditated for a minute because I was so out of sorts. And after that, I had this vision for this film. So if you're in a low point, you never know. It could birth something, life-changing or incredible.
Yeah. And so I read that you kind of classify all of your films as magical, realistic narratives that are about escaping death. And I found that very interesting. And so, why do you feel like you keep coming back to this idea? And how do you feel like magical realism allows you to do something more than just looking at death through a straight narrative lens?
That's such a great question. I think I've always been fascinated slash obsessed with death. I feel like it happens to all of us.
Mhm.
We don't talk about it a whole lot, and no one knows for sure what happens. And that I find so intriguing. My parents followed an Indian guru for the first 15 years of my life, which is why I have an Indian name. So this idea of sort of mysticism and reincarnation was talked about or the regs, when I was growing up. So it was normal for me to think about what happens when you die all the time. And I think because we don't know what happens, like going with the magic realism, concept or just anything fantastical
Mhm.
is a great way into this subject. You can't say it's a documentary when you start talking about what happens after you die, unless it's like a near-death experience. So I think also, I was raised on as a theosophist, which I'm not anymore, but it's basically the study of all religions.
Mhm.
And I would hear myths from all over the world, like once a week. So I think that really inspired the kind of stories I'm drawn to. Just
Yeah.
like these ideas of you almost see them in like Marvel movies today.
Mhm.
We just have a different word for them, but they're kind of myths in their own right. We have our origin
Mhm.
stories, and they're all sort of fantastical. So I think I'm not sure if I exactly answered your question, but I think it's a fun way to deal with, the unknown. It's
Yeah,
magical realism. Yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating. It's so interesting. And you're right about Marvel movies. I tell that to my dad all the time that I'm like, you're just watching myths. You're just watching
Yeah,
Greek mythology, but like in
totally.
spandex.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's so funny. I know, right? It's a funny combination.
Yeah. So the woman at the center of your film is an aging actor she's by herself for a lot of the film. And so I'm kind of curious how you landed on Jane and then
Sure.
what made her the perfect Celia for your film.
Right. My producer first talked to me about Jane, and once I sort of had the idea of her in the film, I couldn't shake it. I was like, became kind of obsessed, and I was able to get her the script. And, the funny thing is, I hadn't even watched very much Malcolm in the
Oh.
Middle, so I'd seen all these other things, but we were able to get her the script. And thank goodness she has a manager who's awesome, who was willing
Mhm.
to entertain the idea that she would do a short. I had to show some other work samples, but
Mhm.
um, she loved the short. I ended up getting to do a Zoom with her, and we had immediate connection. I did write a pretty great script, I think. But she was just so fantastic to be
Mhm.
receptive to it. And I think when you have somebody who's really perfect for a role, you
Mhm.
might get them, and
Mhm.
this goes for all filmmakers out there. So we had a lovely exchange. And the first time I met her in her house, like we just talked all day long. And by the end of the day, I was like, I love this woman. She was just eating, standing up from the refrigerator and, like you do when you're alone. And it was just a great meeting. And I think she really shines in the role. She's
Yeah.
just fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you feel like her immediately opening up and like immediately feeling at ease, do you feel like that came from this connection to your work and like this idea of how women, especially as soon as they get older in Hollywood, aren't really given interesting parts like this? And so it's probably,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think so. She was able to connect to a lot of it. She also had been through a divorce,
Hmm.
so that especially hit home from
Hmm.
her for her. So you know, she's aged really gracefully,
Hmm.
but I think she was able to connect to a lot of what the film was about. And I mean, we shot in her house, which is
Oh.
so funny and so unusual, but she was so cool. So I mean, talk about it making close to home. Like we were literally shooting in her house.
Well, that brings me to my next question is about the production design. And
Yeah,
I'm now curious how much of it was brought in
right.
from you and like how much is just already there.
Right. So first of all, shout out to my production designer, Vanessa Liska, who is incredible. It was about half and half.
Mm.
Sometimes more brought in, sometimes less. Her house is definitely not that ridiculous. Like all the ridiculous over the topness is not really her house. You know, that was
Okay.
our gold bus and like humongous flower arrangements. But the bones of the house were there. There's one room in particular, the pink room, when there's this long scene of giving of gifts, and that really was like that, except for some of the flowers in the middle, and that's like my favorite scene.
Yeah.
So I would say 50-50 depending on what the scene was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit? Because I love the pastel workwear. I thought was fascinating, and like the overalls that the guys are in at the very end, and your use of color and like the pink and green keep coming back. So I was curious if you could talk a little bit about the colors that you're using and what you wanted to invoke through that.
Right. That's a great question. When I first had the idea for this film, it doesn't always work this way, by the way, but I got a lot of color. It was like
Mm-hmm.
pink, and this was pre-Barbie, but I was like pink, red, purple. I was thinking of the candy hearts at Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And I really ran with that. And the production designer and my wardrobe girl, Flora Ronzone, who's incredible, really had a great time with that. There's definitely like a little Wes Anderson nod.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when I think about like color symbolism, for
Mm-hmm.
example, I think of pink as sort of innocent and girly and maybe naive and playful. And then going into she starts out in pink and by the end she's in sort of blood red.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, red is like passion, fire, love. And so you could, you know, trace those colors of like her emotional journey, if you will.
Yeah.
And you were asking about the guys at the end. I mean, they're really funny. I almost like, should they have looked like they maybe did their job for a few days before that? You know, it's so like almost
Yeah.
Mario Brothers. People don't know what we're talking about, but it's kind of funny. But it's so different from anything else in the film that I think it kind of works.
Yeah, and I was so impressed that you found pink tennis balls somewhere. I play tennis. I have no idea where you got those.
You know, I had never seen them either, and that was props and production designer just being awesome because I didn't write that in the script. They just if you have a strong vision, it's
Mhm.
really great because people will get really excited and want to run with it, and that's what they did. So when I saw the pink tennis balls, I was like, yes.
It was so funny.
Yeah.
I'm curious too. I don't want to spoil the film, but there is a part toward the end where she's in the blood red, like you were talking about, and she's falling off of a balcony. And
Yeah.
logistically, for a smaller short film, what does the production of that look like, creating that shot? And because I
Right.
assume it just seems like a lot.
It was a lot, you know, and there's, you know, a number of ways of doing it, and some are more expensive than others. I probably would have preferred doing it slightly differently, but I am not a Marvel movie. I'm in, you know, a short indie. So we had a stunt woman,
Mhm.
you know, that wore a wig and did jump off, you know, onto some padding. And we shot her with the phantom camera and in slow motion on a regular camera.
Ooh.
And then, you know, Jane never did
Yeah.
anything like that. She like sort of started to walk up. And I'm giving away things, but that's okay. But we ended up having Jane in sitting on a stool at one point and with the phantom camera, which is for people who don't know, like the slowest motion you can
Mhm.
possibly get to, where if you go like this, it'll take like 5 minutes to go like this. So I had to direct her. She had to be like this to be like this.
Yeah.
It was so strange to look at it. You're like, what are we doing? But it was a combination of things of like a stunt woman and then Jane, with blue screen and
Mhm.
going like this. And I think it worked out, and then in post, we ended up putting Jane's face on the stunt woman for a hot minute. So yeah, it was a lot, but it was really fun. That was a fun part.
It's so beautiful too. I mean, the shot of her falling backwards, it's breathtaking. It's so
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're
Thank you so
welcome.
much.
So the film also has this theme of like pretending to be okay when we're not okay, and
Mhm.
how that kind of ultimately makes things worse. And so I was
Right.
curious why you feel like humans are so bad at being sad, and if you feel like Hollywood just amps it up and like social media just amps it up, and how we've gotten to this point where we're afraid of being sad.
This is such a great point that you're making, and I definitely can't give a perfect answer to that
Yeah.
because it's such a great, deep question that might be like the question of our time right
Mhm.
now because mental health is such a huge issue and like depression and anxiety and not older, just older women, but younger women is, rampant right now. And I think social media has a big, has something to blame for that. And unfortunately, I think people feel like they need to show their highlight reel and to just show the good things and, showing, being sort of open and vulnerable and like revealing that you're not doing well. I think people do that, but people are afraid to do that in public, I think. Maybe that's why we have the artists, because artists are sort of, I feel like it's our job to, you know, be truthful to the human condition and to mirror people's experiences back to them. But we should change that. We should all, we can
We
start
should
right
all be emotional. Yeah.
now. We should change that.
And so you've already been playing at some festivals and you've got more lined up for the falls. What has the
Mhm.
reception been like? What has it been like to share this film that I'm sure has touched a
Yeah.
lot of people in the way that you were just talking about?
It's been really wonderful. There's nothing like going to a festival and seeing your film. It's so fun. People seem to love it. I know that you can't please everybody, but when I have been present at the screenings, you can't go to all of them.
Mhm.
It's gotten a really warm reception, and there's always like almost seems like younger women are drawn to it the most, which I never would have guessed,
Yeah.
but I love that. So it's been really great, especially when I can go to the festivals. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the best. Film festivals are the best. I love them.
Yeah.
So my last question is a fun one to, get
Okay.
away from all the sadness that we've been talking about. But at one point, Celia comes across her cabinet of locked Cheetos, and I feel like we all have a snack that we should probably lock away, but is really, So I was
Yeah.
curious, what if you had to have a closet or a cabinet locked of a snack?
Oh my God,
Whoa,
I love
what's your
this.
Achilles heel snack?
My God, I never buy Cheetos
Yeah,
because there's like red number 40 and all these evil things. So it would probably be like the more organic version, like Barbara's jalapeno cheddar Cheetos.
very nice.
Excellent question.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed the short film, and
Thank you so much.
yeah,
Really
you're
thoughtful
welcome.
questions. I love that. I really
Oh,
appreciate it.
thank you, thank you.
Sure.
You have a great rest of your day. Okay,
Thank you. You too.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.